The trade deadline is coming fast, unless your league doesn't have one. But whether you're contending for a title, building for the future, or playing the waiting game, every move at the deadline must serve a strategic purpose. Your opportunity to reinforce your direction is closing fast for this season. So we're going to get our minds right for the trade deadline on this episode of Dynasty Compass. Welcome to Dynasty Compass. Thank you so much for joining me, for listening, for watching, for liking, for sharing, subscribing. It means the world to me and helps me keep building this show for you. Now, last week, we headed west. In our compass metaphor, the West is the strategic direction for managers going all in to win now. They're chasing a championship this year, and they're willing to sacrifice their future competitiveness in order to do this. This week, we're going to head into the other three directions on the compass to discover the questions that we need to be asking, and those depend on which direction we are going. So the biggest thing that we, of course, need to know before anything else is which direction are we going. Now, remember, I've said before, the biggest mistake that dynasty managers make is making moves without having a strategy in place. And if there's ever a time not to do that, it's right now at the trade deadline, because you may not have another opportunity to improve your roster for months, certainly not for the rest of this season, which means any errors you make in strategic direction now, you're going to have to live with for a while. Before we jump in, let's just do a real quick refresher on the compass that is our central metaphor here at a show called Dynasty Compass. The West, as I mentioned, is for win-now teams. They are all in to win a title this year. The North, true North, is our ultimate goal. That is perennial contention, positioned to be near the top of the standings year after year after year, able to build a dynasty of multiple titles over multiple years. The South is for our rebuilders. As things go south, so do our rebuilding teams. They are looking ahead toward next season and beyond. And the East is for those in wait-and-see mode. They're not good enough to contend. They're not bad enough to rebuild. I like to call this direction the chip in a chair. If you can get into the tournament, you make a playoff spot at the end of the season, you have a seat at that table, you have a chance to win it all, and that's what the East is about. Now, each of these four directions has its own deadline plan, whether it be for this season or for future seasons or both. The goals are different. The time frames are different. The approaches are different. The questions that you need to be asking are different. We covered the West last week. We won't go back that direction. So let's start by turning our attention to the North, the land of perennial contenders. Winning a championship is always a goal for those who are in the northern direction. But the point is to contend year after year after year. It isn't necessarily to win this championship this year. It's that perennial contention is how you build your dynasty. It's not one championship, but several across a sustained period of excellence. To do this, you need a proven core of cornerstones and set and forget starters. You need a healthy mix of veterans and younger players. You need some developing talents with which you can be patient. You need sufficient depth to withstand injuries and bye weeks. And you need the ability to reload via draft capital. But you're not rebuilding. You don't need a full slate of picks, and it's highly likely you've probably already traded some of them away already to get where you are, and that's okay because you're reloading, you're not rebuilding. And at the deadline, you are looking to buy, but not a big ticket purchase. You're not looking to make a big splash at the deadline. What you're really trying to do instead is fine-tune an engine that's already humming along. The trade deadline for managers who have perennial contenders is for precise surgical upgrades. You're looking for help on the margins. You're looking for a little strategic boost in the lineup. You're looking to patch weaknesses, to make sure that you're confident in your next man ups in case they have to come into your starting lineup. And you're looking for developing talents who can become reliable depth pieces, or better yet, eventual set and forget starters. None of these are huge, big splash kinds of purchases. So knowing that we're trying to improve on the margins, the first question that managers in the North should ask around the trade deadline is, what marginal improvements will help me the most? We want to identify within our lineup and on our bench our weaknesses, our holes. What are they now? What are they going to be next season? And we need to rank these then in order of importance. And the way I like to think about this is, if I could only fix one weakness on the roster at this trade deadline, which one would it be? As we get into the actual negotiations and mechanics of the trade, the second question is, does this trade improve my chances of winning now, next year, or both? So we're talking about the time frame here. If this is a this year only kind of improvement, it's probably not worth what it's going to cost to get it. We're going to let the West teams, the win now, the all-in teams, we're going to let them fight for those guys with 1 year of improvement in them. We're looking for longer than that. Now, if we're in both timelines, this year and future seasons, then we have found a sweet spot for our trade deadline as a perennially contending team. Those are the kinds of trades that can improve this season now and future seasons. The trade deadline has to have some impact on now, but preferably both time frames, now and in the future. The third question that I like to ask as a contending team in the midst of about to make a trade is, am I getting enough value to make that move now? Put another way, would I get more value for the same price later? And this is especially important for moving our draft picks. Draft picks, as we know, become more valuable to other managers as we get closer to the draft, particularly when they are on the clock. And you probably don't have a pick early in the first round. You're too successful for that if you're a perennial contender. You have a late round pick, or perhaps not even a first round pick at all, but a late second round pick. Are you foreclosing on the potential value of that pick if you make a trade now, as opposed to when it might be closer in time to being used, or perhaps when it is on the clock and another manager has a player they really want with that draft pick? You'll get much more value for that pick at that point than you will now. So when you're looking at the value you're going to get back in a deadline trade, you have to measure it not only against what you're paying now, but what is that payment in the future. But we can even look at it another way here, which is, if I were to trade this draft pick, would I create an inability for me to reload in a given year? If I only have a second round pick in next year's draft and I trade that away, then I don't have any premium picks in next year's draft. And so it will be at least another year before I can reload via the draft. So I like to be sure that I have at least one, a first or a second in each of the next several drafts, so that I have the opportunity to either reload at that point, or to trade or package those with other players and trade up or trade down. If a trade now at the deadline is going to cost you that ability, then you need to think carefully about the answers to those first two questions. What marginal improvements are helping me the most? Is this one of them? And does this trade improve my chances of winning now and next year? Because if neither of those questions is the dead center answer, then you probably are not going to get the value you need to make the trade now. And in fact, that's okay. You don't probably need what you're buying in that case. And you don't have to make a move just because it's the trade deadline. You make a move when it makes sense to make a move. And you certainly want to resist the urge to panic buy. Let's, again, let the managers in the West who are all in and desperate, let's let them do that. We are going to manage more strategically. And if that means standing pat at the trade deadline, then that's perfectly okay. That might even be the smartest strategy. So that was the North, the land of perennial contenders. Let's turn now our attention to the other side of the compass, the South, which is the land of no contenders. If you are in the South, if that is your strategic direction this season, you're not winning a championship. And you know this. You're probably not winning a championship next year. And you know this. So the pressure is off of trying to do something right now to bring that title home. It's actually your turn to put the pressure on others, to put the pressure on the contenders, particularly the teams that are in the West and all in for that championship right now. Because you have what they want, which is points. They have what you want, which is draft picks, which is broken toys, which is developing talents. These are all assets that will pay off later. So if you are in the South, you're looking to sell. And that goal is very simple. You want to turn your fading assets into building blocks for the future. And there is no better time to do this than the trade deadline. You really want to make the move now. You want to get those building blocks in place now, because the assets that you are trying to sell won't be worth more than they are right now. So really, the trade deadline, if you're a rebuilding team, if you're in the South in our compass metaphor, it's about understanding your power in the situation. Now, don't be an ass. I mean, you won't improve your team by being a bully and by making your price demand so high you don't make any trades. You won't improve your team without making some trades. So you need to work toward actually getting deals and not just putting a take it or leave it approach out there. But you can recognize the fact that you could probably extract a little bit more value than what's being offered. An extra third-round pick, maybe a second-round pick 2 years from now. There's other things that you can put into that deal to seal it that a contending team's willing to pay to get what you have for them right now. So like we had in the North, there's 3 questions for us here in the South. And the first one is, what do I have that other managers value most right now? And we've talked about it. They want a proven record of performance. They want points. They want players that can deliver points for them right now. If your asset is not doing that as a rebuilding team, then it is not sellable right now. So prioritize those sellable assets, either in terms of their trade value or in terms of what role they might play for you in the future, their future productivity. And if you could only sell one of them, if you could only make one move and sell one item off of your roster, which one would it be? The second question that I would ask as I am getting into trade negotiations now is, how does the player I'm selling fit into my future plans? Ideally, the answer is he doesn't fit into them. If we're talking about a 33-year-old wide receiver, then the answer is he doesn't fit into your future plans. But he won't for anyone else except a contender going all in right now, which is why it's essential to try to move this 33-year-old wide receiver right now. But just because he fits into your plans, let's say instead of a 33-year-old wide receiver, we're talking a 25-year-old wide receiver. Just because he might fit into your plans doesn't mean that you have to keep him. There are going to be times when you trade an existing building block because it returns enough value that it makes sense to part with them. You're looking for multiple premium picks, multiple chances of drafting a cornerstone player. You're getting multiple potential starters for one. Just be aware that if you're getting a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 kind of a deal, which means you're getting more players than you're sending away, you'll need open roster spots to accommodate those arrivals. And if that means you have to cut other players to do that, that needs to be part of your value calculation. The third question here in the South is the time frame. When am I going to get the benefits of this transaction? Later needs to be defined more clearly. Is it next year? Is it 2 years from now? Is it later than that? For players, it really does have to be next year. Waiting longer than that increases the likelihood that they won't amount to anything. They weren't worth picking up. As for the draft picks, it's timing and need. Are the draft picks for the upcoming rookie draft, that's a quicker impact for you, or are they 3 years out from now? The farther out you trade for, the longer the road to contending is going to be. But this can be advantageous if you already have enough pieces to build with in the short term. You have enough premium draft picks, you have enough developing talents, that this more distant draft pick, let's say this is year 2025, the next draft is 2026, a 2028 first round draft pick gives you an opportunity to add one more piece essentially for free 3 years from now. But if you're going to rip the whole roster down to the studs, a premium pick 3 years from now isn't really going to help by itself. You need that pick sooner. But while we're talking about draft picks, this is a caution I have for rebuilders. Be mindful about hoarding draft picks. You want draft picks. You want as many as you can use, but that's the key right there. You can use. You need to be able to use them. You don't want to be forced to trade them. You don't want to be forced to cut a good player off your roster because you've got this draft pick. Every premium draft pick over the next several years is going to require an open spot on your roster to pay that off. If you don't have a roster spot for your first round pick, then you have just undercut its value, either because you have to cut somebody else to use the pick or you're having to essentially give the pick away. Yeah, there could be a net positive out of all of that, but the net is so much smaller than if we were measuring the first round pick against, say, a dart throw that would never see your starting lineup again. So when you're looking at making deals for premium draft picks, you have to ask yourself the question, do I have enough bench spots? I'll give you an example from one of my Dynasty leagues. I'm in a complete rebuild in a league where you have 10 starters, 11 bench players, and 1 taxi squad spot. So that's 22 people. There are also 2 IR spots, and those are both currently filled by guys who are out for this season who I intend to keep. So that's 24 players for 22 spots as we get into next season. Over the next 3 drafts, 26, 27, and 28, I have 9 first and 5 second round picks. That's 14 premium picks and 2 guys on IR that I need to find places on the bench for. That's 16 of my 21 roster spots that will roll over if I use those picks, keep those players. I also have 5 third round picks, which if I draft those right, they could turn into first round talents. So that's collectively the entire roster that would turn over. That's replacing everyone I have now in order to use all of those picks. So I can't really absorb another premium pick. Since I have a surplus of them, essentially, the next one is even less valuable for me to acquire than the one I acquired previously, which means I need to offer less for them. And that may mean I don't get them. It may also mean I need to look for something else. Maybe I am the one, if I have premium picks and no places to put them on my bench, maybe I'm the manager who should be offering a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 deal for somebody else so that I can clear roster space for the premium picks that I have coming up. And this is yet another reason why strategy has got to be front and center when you're talking about making trades, particularly for future assets. You're trying to maximize value at the deadline, but the reality of it is, as a rebuilding team, you might actually already be set and only willing to deal if you get a significant value for the player that you have, simply because you already have so many draft picks. 2 more isn't going to really help you. All right, that was the South. Let's turn our attention to the East. I've often said that managing the East is the hardest place to be, but at the trade deadline, it's actually the easiest because standing pat is often the best strategy at the trade deadline for teams taking a wait-and-see approach. If you are taking a wait-and-see approach, then wait and see what happens. If you're taking a chip in a chair approach, or poker metaphor, then you're content to take your chances with what you've got. If it gets you into the playoff tournament, maybe you can pull some upsets, get on a heater, win a championship without making any changes. If you've got some broken toys who will be able to play next season in a full cupboard of draft picks, then you have all the flexibility that you need in the offseason, whether it is to draft players, it's to trade, however you want to build from there. You don't need to do anything now. And a lot of people who are in our metaphorical East don't really have a future strategic direction in place at all, in which case you want to avoid making a move that could prove counterproductive. So whichever of those situations or descriptions fits you, the answer is the same. You don't have to make a move. You certainly don't have to be the first mover. You don't have to be the one offering the trade. You're certainly looking for someone to offer you a trade that nets you great value, but you shouldn't really be that active at this point. You're in wait and see mode. So your 3 questions are along similar lines than what we have before, but they are tailored really to someone in a wait and see perspective. The first one is, what marginal improvements can I make now that would make me a harder out in the playoffs? We are not contending, so we're not looking for that asset that puts us over the top, but we are looking for something that might make us a tougher out. Maybe we can advance another round or so if we add a little bit more boost to our lineup. Second question would be, well, then how does the player or pick I'm trading away to do this fit into my future plans? If they fit, you really need to be getting lots of value in return. The third question then, if we know what marginal improvement we can make, and we know how the player or pick that we're trading away fits into our future plans, then the real question is just, can I get the marginal improvements without sacrificing anything meaningful in my future? If I'm trading a pick, am I getting value back that has staying power? If I'm getting a younger player, is it going to give me a higher net value over the next few years than what I might be trading away? And much like in the North, there's this other question that's out there, and it's simply this. Could I do this deal in the offseason instead? Does the value proposition change in March or in April or in August, or is it about the same? If it's a deal that I could make later, then waiting until I have a better idea of which direction I want to go might be the best solution. And really, that last question applies to everybody. Can I do this deal in the off-season instead? If I'm doing it now, am I going to get more value than if I did it later? And if the answer is no, then it's probably better to just wait. When we're at the trade deadline, we naturally feel pressure because we are running out of time to do something. We don't want to do something, anything, without having strategic direction in place. So knowing which direction we are in, we can understand the pressures that we are going to face to make moves. If we are in the West, we are in win now mode, the pressure's very high. We want to buy. We want to add points to the starting lineup right now because we're all in for a championship. If we are in the South, our motivation is high, but we are selling. We're trying to build for the future. Our sellable assets, our aging veterans are not going to be worth any more than they are right now ever again. If we're in the North, a perennial contender, our trade deadline pressure is actually low and we are buyers. We're looking for surgical improvements that help us now and in the future. And if we are in the East, we're not facing very much pressure at all. It should be very, very low. Waiting is just fine. Ideally, you're going to wait for someone to come to you with, as the Godfather would say, an offer that you cannot refuse. So as we get here right on top of the trade deadline, keep those questions in mind, keep your strategic direction in mind, and make sure that the moves you are making make strategic sense now and in the future. Now, I hit on them a couple of times, the notion of broken toys. Next week, we are going to visit the island of broken toys. That is the place where injured players go to recover on some lovely warm beach somewhere in the tropics and get healthy for next season. We've talked about them before, but I want to really dive into them, how to evaluate them, when to trade for them, when to trade them away, just when to leave them parked on your injured reserve slots in your roster. So we'll do that next week. Thank you once again for joining me this week. Thank you for all the likes, the subscribes, the comments that I get, the shares that I'm getting on social media. Thank you so much for that. That's what allows this show to exist. So I want to wish you good luck at the trade deadline, and go win your week, win your league, and we will see you next week on Dynasty Compass.